on Friday night, one of the most bizarre Ja Morant games I've ever seen. There was some passing highlights. He had a little sequence in the third quarter where he threw a lob and then a skip pass for a three, and it's a couple of sequences where he made some plays. But for the most part, he was kind of just floating through the game. And in the second half, in particular, looked like he was openly pouting. The Lakers were packing the paint on his drives, which that's the game plan from JJ, but we've talked about that throughout the season already. Like, that's what every team's going to do to Memphis because they're a bad jump shooting team. So they're going to pack the paint. They're going to dare Ja Morant to shoot. And he went 0 for 6 from 3 in that game. He's 5 for 32 from 3 to start the season. And it just got ugly. And the Lakers ended up cruising to a victory there. And the body language is bad. The effort was bad. It just looked like a combination of him pouting and him losing some of his confidence to a certain extent as Luka was having another insane game. And then we find out after the game from Shams Charania that Ja Morant's been suspended for a game for conduct detrimental to the team. And it was because Isalo ended up calling him out in front of the team for his lack of effort and leadership, and Ja apparently was disrespectful back to him. And so as I look at this, I've been kind of feeling this way for the better part of a year now. It's just been really hard to really come to this conclusion just because I'm such a big believer in Ja. Like I view that combination of the ability to get into the paint and short range shot making combined with playmaking as like a really strong foundational superstar trait, which is what makes Ja so hard to quit on, as a fan, right? But I think it's time for the Memphis Grizzlies to start thinking about the era after Ja Morant. Like, this has been a 5th consecutive season of him declining across the board in almost every major statistical category. And there's really 2 reasons why I look at this situation with Ja as untenable for Memphis moving forward. On one hand, the consistent year-over-year decline, and then on the other hand, a seeming unwillingness to accept any personal responsibility for it, and a lack of self-awareness over what his role is in his current situation. That's the trouble with what happened Friday night, right? You got a guy who's clearly blaming the coaching staff for what's happening when there's clear sign that him as an individual basketball player continues to get worse. We've talked a lot about the jump shooting, and it hasn't been pretty. Like, he shot 34% from 3 the year he made the All-NBA team in 2022, and hasn't shot over 31% in a single season since then. And again, he's just 5 for 32 to start this year, 16%. But by far the biggest concern has been his ability to get to the rim. It has declined every single year since that 2022 All-NBA campaign. These are numbers per synergy. I looked these numbers up this morning and I was shocked. 2022, the year he makes All-NBA, 9.6 attempts at the rim per game. 2023, 8.8. 2024, 7.1. 2025, 6.8. So far this season, in this part of the campaign, 4.7 attempts at the rim per game. 4.7. That's less than half in the All-NBA campaign in 2022. So, like, above and beyond anything with his jump shot, even his superpower, his ability to get into the paint, is declining year over year. Now, some of that, like, you would expect. It's a poor jump shooting team, and as he gets older, you want him to refine his game into a little less reckless, a little bit more pace, change of pace, a little bit more shot making, right? But the shot making hasn't been there. There hasn't been a commensurate increase in perimeter polish to go with the decrease in his ability to get to the rim. Now, do I think it's going to be 4.7 attempts per game for the rest of his career? No, I do think that is being exacerbated by his kind of pouty behavior and him not really bringing the level of aggression that we know that he's capable of. But there's been a clear decline, and that is why it's so frustrating in the context of his behavior. Like, when you blame the coaching staff, when we can all see that you are declining as a basketball player, it reeks of a lack of self-awareness. And it's like, it's one of those things where we saw last season, after Taylor Jenkins was let go towards the tail end of the year, they went away from the drive and kick attack and they gave the ball to Ja constantly. He had his highest usage rate stretch in recent history. He averaged 27 points per game and 7 assists over his final 22 games, and they were a 500 team. So, like, what Taylor Jenkins was trying to do at the beginning of last year, what Isalo is trying to do to start this year, this ball and player movement. Let's play with more pace. Let's try to make life easier for you. All they're doing is their job as the coach, to attempt to make life easier for you on offense so that the team, not you, the team can score the basketball. And we see this across the league. We know that Josh Giddey can spam high pick and roll, but guess what? The Bulls are trying to play fast and they're trying to get the ball moving because that is how they are going to score as a team. The Miami Heat are doing the same thing. We watched Tyler Herro run a million dribble handoffs and pick and rolls, and we couldn't score. So how about we run the ball up the floor and we play with pace and we drive and kick early in possessions and we try to keep everybody involved with ball and player movement. This is what everybody who is smart in the NBA is trying to do right now. And because it's not on Ja Morant's terms and it doesn't involve him just dancing around at the top of the key doing his own thing every single time, he's not happy with it. And it's just frustrating because, like, again, like, there's clear indicators that his individual performance is not where it needs to be in order to anchor a team as like this heliocentric, give me the ball every time and get out of my way type of shot creator. You need to be getting to the rim a lot more and making a lot more jump shots if you're going to be that type of player. So, of course, Isalo and all these other coaches around the league are looking at situations when they don't have a Luka Doncic level primary ball handler, when they don't have like a foundationally great offensive player. They're trying to generate a system that can cultivate offensive success for the unit. That's all Isalo is trying to do. And like Josh kicking and screaming during that. And again, like, I think there's two different ways to look at this. There's like an in a vacuum conversation to have about Ja as a basketball player, which is what we're having right now. Like, he's declining as a basket attacker. He's declining as a three-point shooter. He's not the kind of guy that you want to be playing heliocentric basketball with. But it's also complicated in the context of this Memphis Grizzlies team, who is not a very good spacing team. They don't shoot the basketball well as a team. I would argue if you were trying to construct an ideal situation for Ja Morant, you want him surrounded with guys who can shoot, because playmaking is a strength of his on offense. Short range shot making, if he can get to the basket, is a strength of his. But if he can't get there, then it's going to become an emphasis on his jump shooting. And so if you can't space the floor, he's going to have to settle for jump shots and he's going to miss them. So there's also like a team specific conversation around the Grizzlies where, like, even if you believe in Ja still, it's just not a good fit. So I'm looking at this as a situation where it's a sinking ship, so to speak, with Ja, but it's also uniquely poorly situated in Memphis for him there. So, like, I'm such a big believer in Ja Morant that, like, if there was any sign of it trending upwards, I'd still be in for Memphis. But it's the opposite. He's trending in the wrong direction, and it's a bad fit, and now he's pouting. So it's time for the Grizzlies to move on. So again, now looking at it in a basketball context, this is where it gets complicated. Because of the lack of self-awareness, because of the inability to accept personal responsibility and some of the attitude issues that Ja Morant's had over the years, it makes it complicated. Like, for instance, I kept thinking, what about Boston? Boston has a couple of large salaries that they can move. Boston kind of could benefit from some real dribble penetration, like a guy who can really beat people off the dribble and play make. Boston is a team that can space the floor for him. But is Boston's upper management going to look at Ja Morant and his attitude and be like, yeah, let's bring this guy into our system and potentially risk the basketball culture that we've been building for so many years? So it's tough because, like, I want to see Ja go to a strong basketball culture that can space the floor for him, but he's making himself undesirable for that very type of team with some of his behavior. So like on the one hand, it feels like it's kind of time to move on for Memphis, but it's going to be a lot harder to move on than people think. And overall, I just think the situation is sad. It's sad because Ja Morant had, like, how many players in the NBA truly have a foundational superstar trait? Not many. There might be a dozen in the entire league. Ja did. Ja had it. He could beat everybody off the dribble. He had the short range shot making, and he could pass when he got to the middle of the floor. And because of the lack of skill refinement behind the scenes, like, he's just not putting in the work to become the jump shooter that he needs to be. And he's declining in all these other areas. It just is starting to look like a story that doesn't have the happy ending that we were all hoping for when Ja kind of took the league by storm in 2022. He was second team All NBA, definitively a top 10 player in the NBA in that season. And it's just been all downhill since then. It's just really sad. And I wish it had a happier ending, but I just, to me, it's trending in the wrong direction.